Hi, today I will be talking about effective feedback, specifically what feedback is not, what feedback is, and then keys to giving effective feedback in a classroom according to Grant Wiggins. Specifically, I'll be giving an example also about what feedback looks like in my classroom as a band director. We're going to begin with Wiggins saying that feedback is a word we use unthinkingly and inaccurately. I have definitely made the mistake of thinking that feedback is approval or disapproval, praise or blame, or just simply grades. And I'm sure I'm not the only teacher to think that, but this information that Grant Wiggins has given us certainly put feedback into a new light for me. Feedback is not advice or opinions. Feedback is supposed to be a value neutral way of describing to a learner what he or she can do to improve their learning and reach their goals. Effective feedback will allow a learner to make adjustments that can be applied in future performances. Feedback is information about how we did in light of some goal. Information that was or wasn't accomplished towards that goal is also feedback. A common misconception about feedback is that it is labor intensive and impractical because it's not just a grade or saying that's good or that's bad. But that's not true. And in fact, our goal as teachers should be to provide enough feedback for students to eventually self-assess and self-adjust, giving themselves feedback. If we can do this, this will maximize their student learning. Um, Evaluation is the act of placing value. That's why that's not feedback. Feedback is facts. Feedback is just information. We're not placing value on anything. So in an ideal assessment system, um, it actually includes, this is according to Grant Wiggins, it actually includes standards, but then feedback, which again is facts, and those facts in relation to the goal that you have stated. Then an evaluation, actually placing value on those facts, judging those facts, and how they relate to the goal. And then guidance. So what would you do to improve the feedback after? So then Wiggins talked about the keys to effective feedback. Um, they need to be goal referenced. A performer needs to know what the goal is and then how to take action to achieve that goal. Goals need to also be tangible and transparent. Sometimes teachers think that their goals are transparent and clear, but students might not think that. And Wiggins had suggested that it might be a good idea to record yourselves actually teaching the class and seeing if your goals really are transparent. He said that goals need to be actionable, and students need to be able to adjust based on the feedback that you give them. They need to be user friendly. Feedback is not supposed to be meant for experts. You need to use kid friendly terms for it. Um, Feedback should be given in a timely manner, sooner rather than later. The most effective feedback will be given to a student almost immediately after their assessment has been recorded, and it will make the most sense to them at that point. Feedback should be ongoing. Every formative assessment allows for good feedback. The more feedback the student gets, the more the student learns and can improve. And then it should be consistent. Performers can only adjust successfully if their feedback is accurate every time. I have an example of Emma, the saxophonist. Um, Emma is a second year saxophone student. We were doing a tuning warm-up and I noticed her tone sounds very full and warm, which is really appropriate for the instrument. And then we also played through our B-flat concert scale, which is a very common scale that most bands and wind ensembles do. And we had a specific articulation, which is slur 2, tongue 2, da 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 da, and Emma was having a little bit of trouble with that articulation. So I gave an example of bad feedback, which would be, Emma, your tone sounds really good, but you need to keep practicing the second exercise. That feedback is bad because, one, I gave an opinion about her tone rather than saying why it's good. And then I also didn't really give her any guidance about practicing for the second exercise. I didn't really tell her what the goal was and how to achieve that goal, how to improve on what she's doing now to achieve the goal that, again, I didn't give her. So then I gave an example of good feedback. On saxophone, younger players often get a very airy, thin sound, but you have developed a full, warm sound. Keep it up by sitting up straight and using all your air to push through the instrument. When you did the second exercise, though, you tongued every note. There's this curved symbol right here, and that means that you actually don't tongue the second note, and you instead slur it. Practice slurring from one note to another note very slowly. And then when you can successfully do that, and I'll check in with you, practice the whole exercise with that same articulation of slurring the first two notes and then tonguing the next two notes, but do it very slowly. Once you think that you're really comfortable at it, then you can speed it up. And then I will check in with you and see how you're doing and help you reach that goal of ultimately playing the entire scale with that articulation at a typical march tempo. That feedback was much better because when I stated what the goal was, I gave her feedback that wasn't necessarily opinionated. It had just more facts, more information about goals and how to achieve them, or goals that she had already achieved, like the full and warm sound of the saxophone over tone, right? And then I told her that I would check in with her, which is anticipating that there will be more feedback, more consistent feedback, and more feedback more often. So anyways, that's kind of the example that I wanted to give for what effective feedback looks like, and I hope you enjoyed this little presentation.